Hello again guys, and welcome back to Civilization 5. We are getting ever closer towards a victory here, and let's carry on with that. A little bit slower than I would have liked. I guess I spent so much time in the early turns talking about what I was doing and sort of talking through everything turn by turn that I kind of really wasn't paying that much attention to the turn counter or the order of my progression. So unfortunately my tactics have suffered a little bit because I've not really been concentrating all that much. But saying that, I mean, the game is on the standard difficulty level and I am still technically the closest person to a victory at the moment. The Zulus now want to go a little bit hostile with Germany. Well, I've got no interest in that arrangement. Let's just see what happens with them. We have noticed they've started to take some of the American cities, which could be problematic for them. Greece and Egypt have gone to war, which is a little bit strange because they've got Germany's front lines in between them, so let's see how that works out. Great scientist has been born in the city of Edinburgh. Let's carry on moving this submarine around because I do want to scout around the outer edges. Shaka is secretly plotting against Bismarck, and the Zulu army is marching in a surprise attack against another civilization. Well, it's probably not really that much of a surprise because it's probably going to be Egypt. We've already told Bismarck before that we know the Zulus are after him, but we've got an achievement, one I haven't managed to get before, although it's strange because I've been trying, which is an achievement for sharing intrigue with somebody who has shared intrigue with you. At least I've finally got that one now. So, on to Douglas. Is there any useful building that we can build here? Well, a hydro plant would give us some happiness, and +1 production for every tile built next to a river. It's probably worth doing that now. We do have 4 tiles on the river. 1, 2, 3, 4. We do have 4 tiles on the river, and it'll give us an extra happiness. We've got plenty of aluminium, so let's go for that. Glasgow's also finished its production of the research lab. So what we could do, we could go for a stadium for some additional happiness. We could also go for a seaport, which would give us extra 1 production in gold from sea resources worked by the city, and extra production when building naval units. Or we could go for the hospital, which would increase the food. So I think we're going to go for that one right now. Werner Heisenberg, let us rush our technology and get the next one. So let us go for robotics, because that'll allow us to have missile cruisers, and there we go, there's the spaceship factory. That's what I was looking for. So spaceship factory requires 1 aluminium to build. It does cost 3 maintenance, but it gives you 3 production per turn for the city anyway. But it also gives you an extra 50% production when building spaceship parts, so that's quite an important thing when we're going to be building the spaceship parts. We won't have a spaceship factory everywhere, but we will try and have one in our closest city. So we will have one at Dublin, we will have one at Cardiff, we may have one at Douglas, I don't know, maybe Douglas is a little bit small. When we build our Apollo project, which we will build at our capital, we'll build that in Edinburgh, you get a free spaceship factory anyway, so that's not too bad. Now, I showed you this attack helicopter on the last video, and one of the things that I wanted to try with it, because I hadn't tried this before, attack helicopters, because they work kind of like a land unit, they can travel across water, but they need to embark. And I was just wondering, yeah, somebody had told me, but I wasn't sure if it was true, somebody had told me that on shallow water tiles, they didn't actually need to embark, which would kind of make sense. I mean, it's a helicopter. I appreciate they don't have the sort of operating range that planes do, but you would at least think it would be able to hover over shallow water. But in this case, no. You can take helicopter gunships on the water, but you do need to embark. But at least that's another myth busted. But I don't really know what I want to do with that helicopter at the moment. I might just keep it around my southeastern borders, just in case Greece does decide to attack. It looks like it's having a bit of problem with some barbarians there, where they should have more than enough units to deal with it. One thing you should always try and do if you have a unit that is near a city, Always try and attack it with the city first, then attack it with units afterwards. And the reason I say that is because if the city kills it, you're not going to get the XP for killing it. So, kill the Zulu spy. Although you still do get some experience just from doing damage to the unit anyway, even if your unit doesn't kill their unit. So, but always try and attack with the city first and finish them off with the unit. And then that way, the unit you finish them off with will move into the space they occupied. Unless you specifically don't want to move anyone into that space, then okay, that's fair enough. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go for the airport at Dublin. The reason for that, actually, no, don't really need to bother. It's close enough to Edinburgh to move there in one turn. We'll go for the broadcast tower, get us some extra culture. What I normally try and do is I will build airports at the capital and the other cities in which I have a spaceship factory. That way I can move the spaceship part to the capital in a single turn. But there's really no point in doing that because all of my other cities are close enough to be able to just transport via rail in a single turn, so that's not much of a problem. Keep moving that submarine around. I was also having a bit more experimentation, and I answered another one of the questions I posed, which was, is it possible to build multiple cities next to each other to cut across a piece of land that is 2 hexes wide? And it isn't, because I already knew this, but must have completely forgotten, and it reminded me when I tried the other day, is whenever you settle a new city, you can't settle a city within 4 tiles of a pre-existing city. So this is to stop you this is to stop cheesy tactics where you could potentially build your city right next to somebody else's city, capture a lot of their land, and be close enough to their city literally to fire on it from your own city. So that's fair enough. It makes sense that that's in there. There's a bomber coming in. Don't know whose bomber that is. Is it one of the Greek bombers? Yeah, a bit strange that the Greeks are using a bomber to attack a unit when they've got so much military around there. So I haven't really used any bombers or fighters yet, but the way they work is you station them in a city. Also, I've got more barbarians down there. You station them in a city and they have an operational range, maybe 8, 10, 12 hexes, depending on the technology. And what basically happens is you click on the unit and you click on the hex you want it to attack, and it will fly out, it will attack, and it will fly back. Now, they can be shot at by any unit that has anti-air capability. There's a few units that do. I mean, even things like cavalry have anti-air capability, although they do very little damage. There are some dedicated anti-aircraft guns. You've also got the cities themselves, which have the ability to fire at aircrafts, and they do quite a bit of damage. And you also have fighters. Now, fighters can be used to attack ground targets, although they're not as effective as bombers. Fighters can also be used to intercept air targets. So if you put a fighter on intercept mode, any air target that flies into its operational range, the fighter will instantly take off and intercept it and try and do damage to it. You can also use fighters for a thing called a sweep, which basically means if you want to bomb an area, you send a fighter out to that area first in a sweep, and that fighter will attempt to goad and take out any of the opponent's fighters that are on intercept, and also any of the anti-air units as well. But hopefully at some point that is something I will be able to show you. Nantes is going to do the... what are we going to do? Let us go for the windmill, get a little bit of extra production out of it. Let's keep this submarine moving, although we've basically found Greek's borders now, and we've pretty much uncovered where we were. So we might head that submarine back over to Shaka's territory. It's going to take it 13 turns to get there, but at least I'm not going to have to worry too much about babysitting that submarine around now, turn after turn. So we'll let them have their next turn. I can't really ask him for gold because he's actually on minus 10 gold per turn, so I'll carry on with that arrangement. If you ever get to a point where you're not making any gold per turn, or in fact if you're losing gold per turn, let's say like in the case of Ramses there, you're making -10 gold per turn. What will happen is that gold will come out of your sort of bank, your sort of bank account there. When that gets down to 0 and you're essentially bankrupt, if you're losing 10 gold per turn and you don't have any gold, it will actually come out of your science. So, yeah, you don't want that to happen, really. Choose production at Edinburgh. We are going to build the Apollo program, which is going to take 8 turns. And just have a look. I was almost convinced that that gave us a free spaceship factory. Maybe I am confused. Important technology for the space race. Robotic scientists build spaceship factory. A building which speeds up the construction of spaceship parts. Okay, maybe it was another tech that does that then. There's definitely a tech that gives you a free spaceship factory. But that is quite a strange thing for me to miss that. Maybe it was nanotechnology. Okay, clearly I'm having one of those days where I can't remember anything. Maybe it's because I haven't got spaceship factories unlocked yet. Oh well, we'll see. We'll find out what happens. We'll have enough spaceship factories to do what we want to do anyway. Did I just not tell Edinburgh to build the Apollo program? Did I click on the wrong city? Could have swore it was Edinburgh. It's because I was looking at Edinburgh, you see, and Edinburgh had finished its production. So who on earth did I just tell to build the Apollo program? Apparently nobody. Oh, Cardiff. Right, no. No Cardiff, no. You are going to build a hotel. Let's get some of that culture and tourism going. Edinburgh, on the other hand, is going to go for the Apollo program. I don't know why it's going to take you guys 11 turns. Let's go into here and go on to production bias, because that might take that down a little bit. Probably not an awful lot. What you've also got to remember as well, actually no, changed my mind again, going to leave it on default. The problem you have is if you start to change things, it is useful to be able to change things between production and science and wealth, but what will happen is your workers will start to come over and start to convert farms to trading posts, and it's just you lose so much time while things are being converted. It's just not worth it at the end of the day. We'll carry on going to Greece for 10 gold per turn. I think I'll go to 13 to Berlin. Yeah, why not? Let's give that a go. So we've got this helicopter gunship unit there. I'm quite happy for him to just sit there on alert in case anything happens. Let's go on to the next turn. It's not going to take us too long to build the Apollo program. We've got plenty of time. So now America wants to go to war with Greece, which is a little bit strange considering he's just been fighting off a war with the Zulus. I'm not sure if he is still at war with the Zulus, but I certainly don't think America's in that strong of a military position at the moment, so I'm quite surprised that he's trying that. What I'm actually going to do in a second, when this turn resolves, is we can actually have a look at the various army sizes. Right, everything's going to move around. So I know we've looked before at the demographics, and the demographics will tell you who has the best army. So if we actually look at soldiers, we can see that Germany has the most, Egypt has the least, but it doesn't actually, we are 5th in the ranking. You can see though now we're doing very well. We've got the highest population, Shaka has the least, which is a strange thing because Shaka actually has the most land. He has more land than me and I'm in 2nd place. So I've got the biggest population, I've got the most crops, I'm manufacturing the most stuff, I've got the most money coming in, I've got the highest happiness, and I'm the sort of highest in science, which is really good. But what we can also have a look at here is the military overview. And if we look at the military overview, is this the one? Am I looking at the right one? I think this is my own military overview. Yeah, this is my own military overview. Very similar to going into this menu here and looking at your units list. You can see everything you've got, where it is, what it's doing, how whether it still has movement, moves remaining or not, how much movement it has, its stats, your progress towards great generals and great admirals. So all of that is, you know, really, really good. You also see this thing here called supply. And basically what supply is the number of units that you're allowed to have. And this is something that isn't ever really mentioned in Civ 5, but there's a unit cap. And that cap is... it's a dynamic cap. It's determined by a number of things, including the number of cities you have and the number of population. But it's to stop you building up an absolutely colossal army and not building anything else. You actually have to be able to build up your empire in order to have units. Now, I'm only using... I have a total supply of 97, and I'm only using like 22 of it. So my army could be 3-4 times bigger than it currently is. But I really don't need to be doing that at the moment. Let's just get Truro doing its thing. Not an awful lot that Truro can really do, so let's get it back on to research. Now, assigned delegates, this is to ban the luxury of silver. I don't really want to ban silver because I think, if I look at my happiness, yes, I'm getting 4 happiness from silver. So, you know, screw the Greeks, I'm going to say nay on that. Greece isn't happy with me anyway, so it's not like it's really going to make that much of a difference to anything. Now, I'm trying to remember now, because I was almost certain that there was an overview where you could see the size of each player's individual army. And I'm quite strange that I can't find that now, so maybe I am incorrect. Yeah, can't see anything that would say that. Economic overview is also a very useful one. If you look at economic overview, it will show you each of your cities and show you exactly what they're building. You can click on them directly to be able to change them, and you can also right click on them to go to the Civlopedia. And it tells you the defence, or the strength of each city, the amount of food, science. So as you can see, Edinburgh's popping out a huge amount of research. But Cardiff is my fastest growing city. It's producing the most food. But your capital's nearly always going to be the sort of the top of the tree there. You can also click on resources and happiness, which will show you all of the different luxuries you have, how much happiness you're getting from each individual thing, because you can see some cities you can have a happiness that's positive in total, but you may have a specific city that is unhappy, and those are the cities that can end up revolting at the end of the day. And you've got your city breakdown, which will just show you the sort of public opinion by city for your social policy, for your ideology, as it were. And you've got all the resources down there as well. You can see exactly what you've got available. 6 dyes. You can see how many of each thing. So I'm only exporting 1 dyes and 1 marble, even though I have 6 dyes and 2 silver. Local resources is everything that I have access to in my own local area. So it's quite a lot of information you can actually get from this little panel. And you can also go directly to your advisor council from here as well. So even if you've got these guys turned off, and the portraits do update, by the way, they become more and more modern as time goes on, but these guys do give you all of the tips, all of those little hints that you can turn off as you go through the game. You can actually access them all here as well. So if you ever need to go back and have a look at them, you can do that from there. That's pretty much everything we've covered in there. Espionage overview is pretty much the same as just clicking on the shortcut button that's there. Demographics we've been through. Diplomacy overview again is the same as just... Oh, there she is. Diplomacy overview is a little bit different to clicking on this button here, because it shows you all the city-states, who's allied with them, and what they have. You can actually see all the different civs, and there's a certain amount of things you can see between them. So you can instantly see how much gold they have and how much they're making per turn, and Greece is losing a huge amount of gold per turn, minus 117 gold per turn. We've got shared embassies with all of these guys, so that's a handy little thing. You've also got deal history, which will basically show you whenever you've made a deal with other civs and when they've expired and what they were. And global politics is where you can actually see who has denounced who is at war with who is allied with who. So that's a useful little thing. Not something I look at all that often, to be quite honest. Maybe I should look at it a little bit more. The religion overview is quite good as well, because what you can actually do with the religious overview, and again it's the same as just clicking up here on the faith. If you actually look at world religions, you can see who has what religion and how many cities follow that religion. But you can also look at beliefs, and beliefs will tell you exactly which belief each religion has, and whether it's their follower belief or their founder belief or their pantheon. So some quite useful information in there. It's up to you if you use it. It's better to have the information there and not want to use it than to want the information and not have it.
Trade of interest to you?
So it depends how much you are into the statistics. The higher difficulty levels, it's probably more important to have access to that data, because you have to consider everything on each turn very, very carefully. Not too much of a problem at the moment. Yeah, the Greeks have got a big problem with barbarians at the moment. I'm not sure what's going on, and well, they're just using their bombers, which I think is a bit of a waste. I'm not even sure where there's a barbarian camp. I mean, barbarians only spawn where there's no site on the map. They only spawn in the fog of war, but I can't imagine there's actually that many hexes left on the map that don't have sight, to be honest. But yeah, they've whatever's happened, they've managed to spawn at least, well, there was 3 there and there was a 4th one before, so that's 4 units of barbarians at least. They're moving their workers around. I mean, where could they have come from? Theoretically, I mean, nowhere here, because you can see your borders and you can, yeah, ban silver fails and repeal arts funding passes. There is actually a... Oh, someone's trying to spread their culture on me. I just saw it pop up there. There is actually a... No, I forgot what I was talking about. So yeah, I don't know where those barbarian camps are, because you can see within your borders and you can see the hex next to your borders, so it can't be there. And Greece's borders go all the way up to the water, and pretty much all of the coast and all of the mainland is covered. So I honestly cannot imagine where those barbarians could have possibly spawned. I mean, that's obviously not there anymore because it's right next to a big city, but a barbarian can only spawn... I mean, that could be a barbarian camp because it's more than 2 hexes away from a... Well, it's more than 1 hex away from a border. So, no idea where that came from. Cork is going to do the zoo, actually. Let's keep the happiness up. We are doing a little bit better now. The boost we went for on happiness has worked. Let's go for the hotel here. Yeah, there was something else I was going to mention when I was looking down there on the map, and I derailed myself and can't for the life of me remember what it was. Now, he has wine and crab, but I don't really have anything worth trading with him. Let's offer him some oil. If I give you oil, will you give me crab? Yeah, he will. Will you give me wine as well? He wants coal.
Trade of interest to you?
He also wants pearls. That doesn't help me. No. Let's go back to what we were on. I give you dyes and oil for gold and wine. That's good. That gives us a little bit more happiness. So at least we're doing something now with some of our resources. This is actually one of the reasons why it's better to play a game with more opponents than less, because if you have only 2 or 3 opponents and you have a lot of resources, it's very difficult to find other civilizations to trade with who don't have that particular resource. So for example, I've got access to 6 dyes. I'm only going to get happiness from 1 of them, which means I've got 5 of them to trade. If I was playing a game against 3 other opponents, I'd only ever be able to trade 3 of them, and that's assuming that those other 3 civilizations had something to trade with me and didn't have access to dyes themselves. So playing a game where I've got 11 other civilizations, I'd pretty much find somebody that will take those additional and surplus luxury resources off my hands. So we can now adopt another policy. Let's just have a quick look at the ideology. Is there anything worth getting in here at tier 1? Not at the moment. Let us go for the sovereignty, because this will give us an extra 1 gold from science buildings. Now, it's not particularly great, it has to be said. Doesn't really help with the science that much, but we've got 119 gold per turn, which is now gone up to 174 gold per turn. So I think that's worth having, because that'll help us rush production on things should we need to. What we are going to go for here is a museum. Let's try and get culture up where we can. Get these additional policies adopted. Let's go for a police station. Let's try and get all these police stations built now. Wherever we can, we're going to try and go for them. Not too sure what Washington's problem is. Haven't really done anything to upset him recently, but something appears to have upset him. Don't know what. It seems to be having quite a few disagreements with a lot of the different leaders. Now we're getting denounced by the Zulus. So, you know, it's difficult to tell what's going on sometimes between the AI and why they decide to do that. Corinth has now revolted and joined Germany. So there's a lot of unhappiness in the land, and Germany's getting quite large. Right, we've got robotics. We're in the information era, and that was a massive hit for Greece there. I mean, that was one of their biggest cities. I think, in fact, it's their second city, isn't it? They have Athens. Is it Athens, then Sparta, or Athens, then Corinth? Either way, it's one of their biggest cities, and it's instantly revolted and gone over to the Germans. So, wow. Not looking good for Greece at the moment. So, let's look at our science. Let us go for satellites, because we can build the Hubble Space Telescope. There we go. Two free great scientists appear near the city where the wonder was built. Provides a free spaceship factory in the city which was built, and 25% production when building spaceship parts. So, that is the Hubble Telescope that I actually want to build at the capital city. That's the thing that gives me the free spaceship factory. Brilliant. So, Dublin, let's have a spaceship factory there. Next turn. See, first of all he's denouncing us, now he's pleased with us. We helped to relocate the World Congress to their lands, we've forgiven them for spying, we've shared intrigue our spies have uncovered with them, and they've asked us for help and we've provided it. We demanded that they didn't settle near our lands, which was fair enough. We helped their proposal fail in the World Congress. That might have been why they denounced me. They covet lands that I own. Well, tough shit. I was here first. You are competing for the favour of some city-states. Too right, because I don't want him to get a political victory. They've denounced us, because, you know, why not? And we've got a different ideology, which we are getting a fair bit of unhappiness from. But it's not too bad at the moment, because the way things are working out, we're actually doing quite well on happiness now. I'm glad that things have improved there. So it's the Zulu's turn. See, first he denounces us on one turn, and then on the following turn he wants to accept embassy. What is going on? Now he's being attacked by barbarians. There's an awful lot of barbarians around. Not sure at all where all those are coming from. So what I do want to have a quick look at in the social policies at the end of this turn, as soon as it finishes resolving, is just have a quick look and see if my population is still unhappy. So the World Congress now becomes the United Nations. This is because the world has entered the atomic era, or half of the civilizations have reached the era beyond it. It's probably a case of half the civilizations have reached the era beyond it. So what happens now? This means that a diplomatic victory is possible, and every other vote will be to vote for a world leader. But you do need an astounding number of votes in order to be able to do it. So, choose host. Well, I'm going to pick myself. I won't have enough to do it, but as you can see, turns until the next world leader proposal, 28. Delegates to win the world leader proposal, 32. The highest player so far is Washington with 14. So, he pretty much needs to double the amount of votes he gets, and in order to do that he really needs to become allied with the various city-states. So he's the closest person to being able to get a diplomatic victory, but he's not going to do it because if need be we can take a city-state like Mombasa, and if I wanted to I could just dump a load of money on it. Wasn't quite enough to rob them. Need another 28 influence to surpass the Greeks, so I could give them another gift, give them 500, they're now my ally. So you know, the Greeks now lose them as an ally. I get whatever they were supplying. What were they supplying, actually? They're maritime, so I'm getting additional food from them now, as well as horses. So that gives me an additional vote. I actually now have 11 votes instead of the 10 I had before. But if I'd have actually taken that a city-state from America as opposed to from the Greeks, it would reduce the number of votes they have. So we're doing pretty well. That's what I was going to do. I was going to have a look at my ideology. Yeah, still have 15 dissidents, minus 15 from dissidents, but that's not too bad. Happiness overall is okay. It would be really silly to try and change my ideology now, so I'm going to leave it as it is, probably until the end of the game, unless something really drastic happens. But yeah, everything's looking a lot better now. We've got the Apollo program 6 turns away from completion. We've got some spaceship factories being built. We are starting to research the technology that allows us to build the spaceship parts, and we've still got 114 turns to go. We've got an additional spy as well, so we should probably do something with him. So let's move him to a city-state. Let's go for Genoa. And obviously he'll take a few turns to move in and settle in. But that's pretty much all I can do on that turn. So I might leave it there and then come back on the next video and see if we can't get at least some of these spaceship parts into production. So thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you're still enjoying the series. And as always, if you do have any questions, either send me a message or leave it in the comments and I will do my best to answer it for you. So until next time, goodbye for now.